Good morning and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Reverend G, and I'm delighted that you chose to spend this time with us, and I'm delighted that you chose to tune in on the holy interwebs to spend this time with us. It's been so long since I've given a talk that I hope it's like bicycling. It'll like come back to me. I'll figure it out how to do it. Also, I have this headache, which is a good thing. We were just talking about it because it means that I'm getting better, but it's a bad thing too. It's very hard to focus. So hopefully I'll be able to bring this together and make sense of this talk, okay? So bear with me. Patty is my wife, for those of you who don't know. And before I met her, I had a bunch of failed relationships. So I just heard myself. I didn't have a bunch of failed relationships. I had a few. I had a few failed relationships, and I, like many people, had criteria of what I wanted and from my partner, what I wanted them to look like, their education, like I had a list, and then you want to check it. And then I had my list, and then I would get with somebody, and it didn't work out. Nothing wrong here with my approach. Why is it I am so wonderful, and then my relationships don't work out? Well, then I thought, maybe there's something wrong with my approach. And could I have a different approach to this whole relationship thing? So I started thinking about it, and I thought, the problem with every relationship was they checked my list, right? I didn't feel the way I wanted to feel in a relationship. I wanted to be wanted, loved, supported. I never wanted to worry, should I call them, should I not call them, would it be okay, would it not be okay? I wanted to feel in a way that I just didn't. So then it occurred to me, the problem is then that it's the experience I'm looking for. And I'm trying to make that happen through an intellectual exercise. So I changed my mind about it. And I decided, okay, G, how do you want to feel in a relationship? Wanted, loved, respected. I want to have fun. I want to laugh. I like to laugh. And then I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to go for. And then I can even walk into a relationship with eyes closed, and when I feel the way I want to, I can open them, and that's what they look like. And that's what their education is, and that's what their income is, and that's what I changed. And then I met Patty very shortly after that, and I would have never gotten with her had I gone by my list. She had children. She didn't have, at the time, she didn't have the level of education that I always thought that was a must. So there were things that totally didn't check off my list. And it's the best relationship I've ever been in. In fact, if everybody would find their Patty, this world would be all right. I think there would be no fights. I think this world would be just fine, really, really fine. So I changed from an intellectual approach to an experiential approach. Yes? Make sense? Okay. That's important because we will come back to this. So we are talking about preparing the soil for a healthy community, for a strong and healthy community. And as I was preparing for this talk, I thought about it like, okay, what's the list? Yes? What's the checklist for a healthy and strong community? See how fast I went back to that intellectual approach, yes? Well, on the checklist are several different things, and I will name them, and then I'm sure you can add to them. Okay, so there has to be trust, right? So we trust each other. There has to be support. When we're in trouble, we have somebody to lean on, right? So there it is. We come together, we lean on. There has to be compassion. We don't judge each other. Instead, we come together and say, oh, that must be awful that you're going through this. Or, how good, how wonderful that you got that job. Or that you found the love of your life. You know, those shared experiences. You definitely want to have leaders, good leaders. Leaders who care, leaders who are supportive, who are open. So it's not a top-down. I wouldn't want to be part of a community where there's a strong top-down relationship. This is how it is, and you take it or leave it. So I'd want a leadership that cares to listen to the whole of the community and then adjusts, but still, they have a vision that maybe that vision stands out. And I think that is the job of a leader. They are the ones who can see something that the rest may not be able to, and then they have to be able to translate that vision into inspiration so that everybody gets the vision and gets inspired, and yes, that's where we're headed now together. There has to be also money involved. So you have to support. There's that buy-in. No community can exist without that financial support. So if you're giving, thank you. If you're not giving, or maybe you've been listening to us over the holy interwebs, and you've not contributed yet, I encourage you to contribute, buy in, be part of this community in that way as well. What else would you say, would you want in a community that is really supporting you? Well, values, shared values, right? That's very important. Not necessarily shared beliefs. I don't care about those, but shared values and common goals. Now, what you believe and how you believe in this world, especially in this community, does not matter. Whether you are Christian, Buddhist, atheist, agnostic, Wiccan, pagan, those are your beliefs. We don't care about that. We focus on that which we have in common, and that's a common value, a common goal, right? That's important. So yeah, a good community, I think would have these characteristics. But what does it take? Because this is the outcome, right? What does it take to create a foundation from which these grow out? Yes, so like a leaf of a tree. So what has to happen at the root? And I believe that is the lived experience, the shared experience. An intellectual approach will not get us there. It takes something else. It takes a transcending the physical and transcending the intellectual. Hard to understand, no? It's like, how do you make sense of that? So, the intellect. Would you like your intellect to be sharp or dull? It's not a trick question. Sharp or dull? Sharp. Yeah, you want it to be sharp. Because the intellect is like a knife. It slices, it dissects, it cuts. When it tries to understand something, it takes the whole apart into its pieces. Now, however, if I want to understand you, would you like me to dissect you? No, that takes a transcendence. That takes a totally different type of connection that the intellect cannot touch. It's like we connect in ways that the intellect would never allow us to connect. There is a heart-to-heart connection. There's an indescribable connection that you've had before, right? You've had it with people. Maybe you've had it even with a sundown. What do you call that? The sunset. Thank you. You were looking at a sunset, or at a tree, or at the ocean, or who knows, a mountain. You've had that feeling. Maybe something that brought tears to your eyes. How would you ever understand that with an intellectual approach? Those tears that roll down your cheek because you've had an experience. The intellect will not get you there. So a transcendence is required. But why is it so hard for us to transcend? Why is it easier to be intellectual? Well, one, because we live in this Western world. And this Western world has placed a high price on the intellect. In the school, that's really what's pushed for. This world is a very intellectual, it's a logical world. It has to make sense, right? So the intellect relies heavily on the five senses. What I see, what I taste, smell, touch. The five senses are outward oriented, right? Outward oriented, and they're a function of survival. I want to see, I want to hear if the saber-toothed tiger is approaching. I want to be able to assess danger. I want to be able to see that, feel that, touch that. These are functions of survival. So there's so much that goes on within the body, right? There's a lot of blood rushing. Can you hear it? Your heart is beating. Can you hear it? It's not because we're not inward oriented. Our survival required us to be outward oriented. And I believe that we are entering a stage in our evolution where inward focus has to be balanced out with the outward focus. So for that, we've come to practice mindfulness, go within. So when you go without, you can be more grounded, more balanced, more in touch with who you are. So you bring all of you, you can bring all of you into any relationship. So for that, of course, Eric, we're very fortunate to have Eric here. And this year we will start mindfulness practices so we can go within, because we have to balance out the intellect, this outward orientation, with the lived experience and this inward orientation. So what kind of community do you want to be a part of? Think about that. How does it feel? I want to be part of a community where I can belong. And Brené Brown says that the opposite of belonging is not belonging. It is fitting in. The opposite of belonging is fitting in. Meaning, I come in here, I assess. I kind of get a sense of what is expected of people who come here, and then I adjust. And that may not be aligned with my true, authentic self. But I adjust because I want to be accepted. I don't want to stand out. So I'm going to fit in. But that's not true belonging. True belonging is that however I show up, however I come, I feel loved and welcomed and wanted. And that requires inward work. That requires a lot of inward work on our part as we prepare that soil. So when any age, any gender, any sexual orientation, any person walks in here who aligns with our values, they can belong. And then we open our eyes, and that's what they look like. And they open their eyes, and that's what we look like. And then we belong. So I want to leave you with two images. Somebody once said, and I don't know who because I read a lot and listen to this and that, but I may have heard or read it, that we are like big balloons floating around, and the world is like a million needles, sharp needles. So think about that. Because these images that we create will influence our lived experience. So one is that we are balloons, vulnerable balloons with thin walls, and the world is millions of sharp needles. And the other one, the other image I want to leave you with, is that you're like a candle, and your light is lit. And that light is flickering, and it's vulnerable to wind. But then you bring close your candle with their candle, and their candle, and their candle. And that flame grows into a fire. A fire. A fire that now the wind is no longer a danger. Let the wind come, because your fire is so strong. It is so solid. The wind can't put it out. That's who I would like us to be as a community. A fire. A fire that willingly shares its warmth and light with the larger community. A fire that invites others to come and warm up when they need to, dry up when they need to, shed some light where there's still darkness in their lived experience. Be that fire. Not a vulnerable community that is just afraid of anything, but a fire that has warmth and light and is willing to share it with all who share our values. So as we prepare our soil, and as we grow, and this year we are focusing on growth, think on that. What are you called to do as you add your flame to the collective fire? What are the adjustments and changes you need to do to be that welcoming, that kind, that compassionate, that inspiring presence for anyone who comes in here? What are you called to do? How are you called to contribute? What would you like to contribute to the collective voice of your leadership? Do you need to change? Do you need to adjust? Or you need to strengthen that which is within you? So as you are your most authentic self, so can everybody be, and then we can belong. and let the winds come. It doesn't matter, because our fire is solid, strong, and welcoming. And so it is.